Hi, everyone. It's Deb Blum here, and I am here with Aaron Schiller. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Deb. Hi, everyone.
It's so awesome to have you on. I'm so excited. Aaron and I have been friends for, do you think like 5 years? Do you think that's
Yep.
about?
Sounds
Yeah,
about
and
right.
we met. Do you remember how we met?
We met through, I think I realized you were the only person in Marin County who was part of Interchange where we got our coaching certificates.
Well, that is
Oh, what
true,
happened?
but the what we met because we had a shared client. So you had the son and I had the mother as a client,
That's
and the
right.
mom wanted us to connect. And so
That's
we
really
did.
funny. I forget about that. It does
Yeah.
seem like a long time ago, 5 years ago.
I know. And then I remember we met in Mill Valley. We sat down on a bench there. And so, yeah, and then that's when we found out that we went to the same coaching program, which I think put us on this like common ground right at that point, which was great.
Kindred
Yeah,
spirits.
I know. It was like love at first sight. And then since then, you've also introduced me to Jai Flicker, who is my podcast co-host. So there have been lots of places where we've had intersections in our lives, which is
That is so
great.
sweet that that relationship blossomed that way. And when I saw you guys were doing a podcast, I was just so happy for both of you. And it's so great. It's really,
Yeah.
really sweet to see how the universe makes these things happen through us. You know, in Lakota tradition and a lot of Native American traditions, they call it the spider medicine. And spider
Mm.
medicine is weaving people together. And it's definitely, we got woven together, and then you and Jai got woven together. And I've started to take the approach where it's like I'm actually doing nothing. It's just like the universe working through all of us to get to that person, to get that person together, so then that magic can happen. And that is just like way beyond my understanding of how that works, but it's cool
Yeah.
to see it in action.
Yeah. I'm pretty convinced of that too. And I think that I used to think that I was in a lot of control over my life. But then when I see that actually when I've let go, that more magic has happened than I could have ever created on my own. So, when I'm like trying to work it, it doesn't really happen. But then when I just sit back, all these things, all this magic occurs. Yeah. Well, so I was thinking maybe you could just tell us a tiny bit about yourself, whatever angle you'd like to share, just to like give us a little lens into Aaron Schiller's life.
Yeah, wow, that's a really open-ended introduction opportunity. I would say that I'm a human being trying to live a human being's life, and that has taken on a lot of different forms through work or family structures. But in terms of this audience, I mean, I guess for the theme of this show, do you think people are watching who are coming from all walks of life, I imagine, are interested in all kinds. This is an eclectic show, correct?
Yeah,
Um,
well, and because
but
it's the
yeah,
beginning, it's the beginning. So, we don't really know. I'm not even quite sure who the audience is yet.
great. Well, so I would say that you are creating, without knowing it, a sort of a Renaissance show, a place where
Mm,
people who have alternative ideas and um, who who want to share those with the world in a good way can come together. And I definitely think I represent that. I mean, I've been a coach. I've worked with parents, families, business, and through everything I do, I sort of see things in a little bit of a different way, which is probably why we like each other and we're open to our contrast, even if we see things differently. Um, and I think that there is something moving through me right now in this moment of my life around how we interact with each other. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be a creative being on this planet? What does it mean to be
yeah,
connected to planet Earth and be human?
yeah.
I don't know. That's a weird introduction, but that's what came out. So
No, that's
that
great.
was good to me. I like how it's framing your show, sort of. It's the first one, so it's like I like how I refer to it as a Renaissance show. I hope that sticks.
I like it too. I know, me too. I do too. I love it. Yeah, great. Well, that's good. And I just like, yeah. So you're a dad, and you're you live near me, and you also are the podcast host of. Do you consider yourself a co-host? Are
I
you
still
guys still
do because my
co-hosting?
wife
Yeah,
Megan and I have a show called The Muse and the Catalyst.
yeah,
We've been doing it for a couple of years. It's a super joy project, and so Megan and I did all the shows. I did a lot of the interviews. Then we would do shows together. And then she got really sick last year, and so she stepped off the mic. And then when she started recovering, she started producing the shows again. And I kind of do the interviews solo. But it's
yeah,
still a team effort. Like
yeah.
the shows don't happen if she doesn't have bandwidth to edit them or to
Right.
produce them. So as far as I'm concerned, it's still our show. And
Yeah.
um, but yeah, podcasting, these videos, what's so amazing about it is like at the beginning, and you probably relate when you did it with Jai, it's like you kind of don't know who it's touching, But then you all of a sudden hear that it's touching one person or two people. And then it's like, maybe that's enough, right? Like in Judaism, they have the word dayenu. Like, it's just like, it's enough. It's like it touched somebody's life and it was fun to do. Then that's enough. And it doesn't have to be about how much money are you making from it or the scale, or that maybe comes with, with it if you continue to do it. But there's something beautiful about these mediums and how people can be touched by it. And I hope even for this show that somebody watches this and walks away and was touched by something that we talk about.
Totally.
That's meaningful to me.
Yeah, that's what's meaningful for me too. And I think that it's easy to get caught up in that desire to make it something big, but it is really about like even just one person. And that's why I often tell people who parent who think that they're not doing enough, that I'm like, actually, like, you're affecting your child. What more could you do in this world? So I love that you want to talk about or that you're interested in these days in how we relate with one another. It's like one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Can I just say something though that was really fascinating to me when I listened to the beginning of your interview with Michael Meade, and I was just so excited that you were interviewing him. That was just like such a moment for me. But what I wanted to say that I really loved, I'm going to read a quote that you said. These were your words. It's actually before you even started talking to him. You said, it isn't going to be one hero or idea that's going to save the world. So we can relax a bit about that, which I like that too. It's going to be all of us coming alive, all of us bringing our genius forward, all of our ideas, our collective efforts in our local communities, in our towns, in our countries. And that will be the way forward. That brings forth this new world. Yeah.
I mean, and that's like kudos to, that is in some ways paraphrasing Michael Meade in The Genius Myth, which I think everyone should go out and buy right now, because it's so apropos. Like, the way we're slowing the coronavirus spread is through everybody staying home. Like, there isn't like one person who's like kind of making it. It's all of us together are making the difference, and everyone's having to choose without like a government standing at our front door to actually stay home on their own. But yeah, I think I so agree with him. And actually that show was like a portal. As soon as everything that I talked about before the show and after, everything sort of came together for me. Like, it was like, he's sort of like a prophet.
Yeah.
I felt like talking to Michael Meade was like listening to prophecy. That was also a match to the prophecy that lives in me, that has been with me for a while. Like, I saw a Facebook post today from 2015 that I'll send to you after this interview that was all about what would it look like if we all supported each other in living our dreams. What if at every turn, all we did was look at someone and say, how can I help you with your dream? How can I, that's how I felt when you were looking for people for your show. I was like, oh, Deb's working on some dream. I'll help. I'll sign up. I'll fill out the form. It's just kind of like, that's what was available to me to be the help on your path. But it's like, the idea of the genius myth, that there is no human being without some coding of greatness within them, is so deeply touching and meaningful in a world where celebrities and different class systems seem to have a higher rank. And so the idea that, no, actually the equal playing field is really just in our hearts and what's in us. There's an equalizer. And also I would say in that genius myth, to me, there's the next part, which is that if there is a creator, not like necessarily like a religious orientation to God, but if there's an energy that makes all life possible, that we all have equal access to that energy. We're equally woven into that energy. There's nobody who has more, so like the idea like, oh, that person's more spiritual, or like more connected to God or the universe. It's kind of like, well, maybe that person is focused on that more, and so you may feel it around them more, but ultimately it's an equal playing field. Everyone can blossom equally.
Yeah. And when it's funny, you attribute it to Michael Meade, because I just want to give you a reflection, is that when I heard that, I just thought Aaron Schiller. Like,
totally. So that's
because
why it was like me and him. That episode was like, it was very deeply moving for me. I didn't know that one interview could impact me as much as it did.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I was listening to someone who had the same story, but was just a master at storytelling. Like when he talks, I think I joked around for a while after the show. I was like, I wish I could just have Michael Meade with me everywhere I go. So when I would talk, he would just make it sound better and add some like mythical story from 5,000 years ago. Because that's what he does. If you listen to the show, like when you get a chance to listen, you'll see that I'll say something that sounds like Aaron. And then I'll go, oh, there's an old story about the Irish. Like literally, I couldn't say anything that wasn't an old story that he had in his repertoire. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely watch that show or listen. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think that I feel that way too. So why that really attracted me, I think, was because it is the premise behind what I believe as well, which is that the only path to change the world. Like when you said it, I was like, oh, Aaron just described my whole movement with Inside-Out Activism. So then I felt even more excited to talk today about what's going on. So just to set some context that we are in, it is, I actually don't prefer to have my episodes be like time stamped with, I would like them to be timeless. However, we have some extenuating circumstances right now, and it is March 26th of 2020. And we are dealing with something which is novel for us, which is this coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's some crazy times, and we're all sheltered in place, and at least in California. And which means that we are home with our children. Our children aren't going to school. Many of us are homeschooling and working from home. So it's a whole different world for us. Yeah. So my question is, do we want to go into just some general stuff, or do you want to just dive right into something a little bit more edgy?
Where I am in your hands.
Okay, let's do a little
This is
let's
Dev
do
Love
it.
show. This is your show. I'm so
I
relieved it's
know.
your show and not my show.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go a little edgy then.
Right.
Because I have some questions of my own that are around the way that the world is navigating the coronavirus, some of the relational implications and life implications. And before we got on the show, we talked a little bit about this. And so I thought we could just dive into the question that people are putting out there. There was a recent senator, I think, and and he was talking about this choice, this decision point of between life and saving the economy. So like, are people, like, for example, like as a grandparent, willing to say, I'm willing to give up my life in order for my children and their children to have, to not be in a horrible economic situation and have, a generation of suffering, say. I'm paraphrasing in a big way there, but, and so my question for you is, what are your thoughts around that? Like, where do you land on that question?
I think it's so fascinating, and I think for me, I mean, I'll just start by saying I called my mom yesterday and I was like, Mom, I just want to be really clear. I choose you over the economy, just like straight up. And I think it caught her off guard, but I think she appreciated it because I didn't. And it was interesting to see that as a woman in her 70s, that like, that's kind of scary for her to hear that out there in the zeitgeist, that there's a group of people who think her life is it's done. She's not done living. She wants more life. Because I also believe fundamentally, like, the basic human prayer we all carry is more life, please. And so when you start talking about less life, that goes against our basic drive for life at any age. Maybe if you're 99, 105, you're barely walking, maybe. I don't want to speak for people who would choose the economy over their life. But what I find really interesting is that we're getting a much clearer, and this has sort of been the Trump, the benefit of the Trump era presidency, which is these revealings of things that have been a little bit under the surface, right?
Yeah.
The discussions around racism in the country are a little bit more honest, I feel like, now with Trump there, because it's so much more clear what's happening. And so wherever anybody lands on it, I just feel like there's been a lot of elevated conversations, more honest conversation. And this one is especially true around the economy. And I've been really, yesterday I was deep in meditation, feeling like, oh, and I think it was, I was walking in the trails by your house up in the trees, and I was like, oh, life itself is not the economy. And so when people start saying, let's trade life for the economy, people are starting to make the economy more valuable than life itself. And I would just like to say, I mean, I live in Marin County in Mill Valley, one of the most sort of affluent neighborhoods in the world, probably up there. And so there's a ton of comforts that come with that. And so to me, the economy is a manifestation of comfort. And the comfort is not spread out equally in the economy. There is some who have more comfort than others. Some who have bigger houses than others. Some have more cars, newer appliances. That's the economy to me. It's really about the comfort and the ease through which human beings have been able to live on this planet.
Yep.
but it's not life itself. And life itself is so precious and so fragile and so not able to get back. Like for anybody who's lost someone who's watching this, including the two of us, like what would we trade economically to get that person back? It doesn't even matter what you trade because you don't get that person back. It's fine. Like life is life, right? And so I've been feeling really this deep connection to like, you know, if it meant more life for people and I had to have my parents move in with us, although they would never want to do that, just for the record, or if I needed to move another family into our house, or if I had to change our comfort sets for an economy that's not as strong so that more people could live life and hopefully live life even more awake, more preciously, more with more juice and vigor in their life, I would choose that every day and twice on Sunday. I really would. And so for me, this question around the economy versus human life, I just like that it's waking us all up to go, wait, the economy is not life itself. So where do we, and the economy has so blanketed our lives. It's everything. How do we pay our bills? It's all the economy. So it's like, if you think about all the overwhelm and stress and anxiety the average parent carries around money and tuition to school, like it's just, that's all the economy. And so as the economy starts to kind of pause for a moment, I just pray that everybody can get a little moment to just sort of like do the body, like find your life and recognize the economy is not it. And that there is some space, like, because that's where I think the true ground that we walk on it will illuminate more, and that our ability to know what's inside of us. Because basically I'll end by just saying the economy has invaded our inner space, I believe. Yeah. And so when I'm stressed about money, I'm stressed about bills or work, all those, that's the economy kind of blanketing my inner world. And when I go into a place where I just thank the universe for my life, the economy kind of moves away for a moment.
Yeah.
So that was a whole little rant, but this is a topic I'm passionate about. And I also just want to say, I love the economy. I love all the comforts. I'm not trying to take a position of like down with the economy. And like, I think the economy could improve. I think there's ways we could, I have questions around our healthcare system and the way we distribute it. I have a lot of like improvement projects for our economy. But I'm not against, but at the same time, I really feel the preciousness of positioning the economy and life right next to each other. It's not even a question for me. Like how holy and sacred life is. We made up the economy. It's a made up system by human beings.
So I agree on that. And I feel a lot of that pressure, as well. And like the fact that it's sort of invaded parts of my inner being. One of my questions around it though, is that, there are people though, that, I mean, it still is real. It's like, it's still real in the sense that we can't just say that it's not real, because there are people who truly are suffering. I mean, I know we're very good friends with somebody right now where they're a small business owner, and they're so on the edge right now. And it's only been like a week and a half, and they're so on the edge. And I do look at it and I say, I'm not sure that it's hard for me to fully see how to separate that for a lot of people, because it's not that I'm trying to make a case for the economy over people, but I'm almost more just interested in the nuance of how the economy still affects life.
The suffering,
suffering, right? And the question mark of like, if the economy totally does tank, like completely tanks, and we have all these businesses closed and all these buildings that are vacant and all these people who are unemployed, what does happen to life at that point? What happens to quality of life for people? What happens to people's literal lives? Because we know that when people are in terrible financial situations, that they do often end up with other illness and other problems in their lives. It can actually manifest into death, for people. And so now, I'm not going to deny that there's that's because it's invaded us. I get that. That's not lost on me, but it's still a reality of right now. So what are your thoughts around that part?
I mean, I think it's at the core of the whole system, right? That life and the economy have been kind of confused for each other, because here's the deal. Like, somebody who loses their business or gets fired from, I mean, I got fired from a job for getting wasted at a work party. That was sort of my beginning of my renewed spiritual journey when I got sober. But when I got fired and I had no job, I felt like the lowest. I had 3 people who depended on me, all the bills. It was a bottom moment for me. I was like, oh my God. I was like, how am I even going to do any of these things? And I just remember standing in my backyard and having this moment of feeling alive and feeling like with my life, there is a way forward. I'm a human being. I was like, so what is it? I kind of remember looking at this guy being, what is it, God? And it was like, just so clear as day. It was like, Aaron, you want a way out of this? Like, you're going to have to go straight at it. You're going to have to really like acknowledge this alcohol thing played a big role in this. And if you do that, there's a way out. And I called a friend and I asked for help, and he took me to a meeting. And so this is not in the context of small business, but I'm just sharing, like, this was a work-related crash, right? I had no job all of a sudden. I had babies in the home. And so life persisted. And so I think I would say to anybody right now who is the overwhelming pain and suffering and fear that the person who's losing their business right now. And I know lots of friends too who have had to fire people whose companies are crumbling. It's happening all around us. And the impact on that life, my prayer for them would be that in that fall, that somehow they can make contact with life itself.
Yeah.
Which is the alchemy of a way forward. And it sounds like the government hopefully will do some help. Hopefully people in community will start to really see their friends who are hurting and offer them places to stay if they need to not pay rent for them. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, yeah, this shit's really real right now and it's going to impact a lot of people, but the thing that will happen is change.
Yeah.
And that's what we're also so uncomfortable with. It's like, wait, I had this thing, this business was working, this life was good. Like, I like this life, but once again, this life and all the variables that make it up is not the same as life.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm trying to sort of, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about it in this way with you, because it's super helpful, because it's definitely working me on the inside.
Yeah.
This idea that life itself, like thinking of life as just like a little pixie ball of light that's in us, and it's like, and when that's out, it's out. But like now it's there. And so to the small business owner, can they get to that pixie, very primal moment of their existence? And can they look up at the sky and realize they're alive, and look at the trees that have been through all kinds of things too, and are blossoming, and to feel inside them that even if they don't know how they'll make it through this, that humans have and will. I mean, I think about like the Dust Bowl sometimes. I'm like, must have been crazy. Everything just dried up and became dust, and they had no food. And like, that's real. Like, even small business owners are probably going to be able to find food realistically in our system, whether it be through friend, family. A lot of small business owners may have some credit cards still available that they'll start maxing out, on the journey, and they may end up having to go bankrupt. Like, these things will happen. But the life, I really like that idea of the pixie ball of light, just like, can we get to a base view of something that is life? Without all the decoration, so that we can retreat there and just be like, and I say this with so much empathy for everybody. I mean, like, I mentioned it about Megan, but Megan, about how she almost died last year. It's like, I was there. I saw her little pixie light, almost like it was almost gone. It was just a little flicker, but it was there. It was like the littlest, tiniest little speck of the light, and we just breathed on it. And she came back to life, after 2.5 weeks in a sedated coma. I mean, you were there, you saw me. It was like, and so to me, when I talk about life, I'm glad I'm sharing this in context of this. I'm talking about what it means to just be alive, and what a gift it is. And the wellspring's eternal, right? Like, if you have life, if you can get past, and so to the point where you were saying about the person who spirals, right? They lose their business. They all of a sudden feel terrible about themselves. The walls start climbing in. They get depressed. And then all of a sudden, and Trump alluded to it too, that some of those people end up killing themselves. Like in some of the big stock market crashes, people jumped off buildings.
Yeah.
Their life was the economy. The economy tanked. They didn't have a place to touch that little pixie dust, that little bit of light, and it's so tragic, right? To see people do that, because those people were smart and innovative and probably could have figured out another way to make it.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate
let all that out.
Yeah, no.
Done.
It's good, and it's actually it's working me too right now. It's working me because it's really helpful for me, because as much as I spend my time in this space of my own personal path, without these conversations, it's easy to just get lost in like kind of thinking something is real that's not. And I'm really appreciating you helping me to tease out that it's not just what I said. It's not just that part about like that the economy is kind of real for people right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. But what we're talking about here is an invitation to see it differently. It's an invitation to say, it does feel that way. They do feel like they're one and the same. They genuinely are actually kind of one and the same at this point in our consciousness for our country and world.
Mm-hmm.
And the invitation is to say, no matter what happens, is what you're saying, no matter what happens, no matter how low you sink, no matter how much change is happening around you, life is the thing. Life, that little, pixie dust, like little, that's the thing. And that we always have that. And then we also have the things between us, you are you and I am me. And then there's something in between us, that relational piece. And we have that too, which like sustains us and keeps us going. And that, it can feel so scary though for people. And it can feel like, it can really feel like they are the same. It can.
I agree. I mean, I grew up in my family probably more on the economy side, but I go back to the question you asked. I think there's a breaking happen. Something broke for people when some people started saying, I think grandparents would be willing to die for the economy. I think some people just went, I don't know, really? I'll never really get to see my mom or dad ever again. We could rebuild an economy. We could probably survive a 10-year downturn, but I'll never see them again.
Yeah.
I really will never see them again. And I had the thought the other day, I was like, wow, the way we're all self-quarantined, if someone gets sick, you don't rush over to them. You actually, they slip away, And so it's that's how precious life is. So it's I don't know. For me, one, thank you for letting me have my little rant moment, my sermon on the mount for a second about it. But I still really feel strongly about it, which is just life is precious and it's so beautiful and it's such an exquisite gift. And so I think that I'm grateful that people are saying that we should let go of life for the name of it, the economy, because it allows for this discussion and allows, I just wasn't thinking this 3 weeks ago until I heard that. And I went, whoa, that's a big statement. That's powerful. People really love the economy. And really, it's also the comforts. We really love our comforts as human beings. It must have been really hard out there for our grandparents who, didn't have the electricity, the on-demand water, the supply chain of food. There's no doubt that those stories of how hard it was really rests in our bodies. God, this is the good life. This is, our lives are the answered prayers of our grandparents, right? They wanted so bad for us to have all the safety for the kids and for the parent. This is a dream come true to the grandparents of 200 years ago, 100 years ago. So then the question I ask is, what is our dream prayer for our children? What is it that we want for them? And I know for myself, for my daughters, I want people to really value life and this planet. And I just want to also give a shout out to this economy is really hard on Mother Earth. Really hard. And really so hard. Without getting into why the virus or whether, planet Earth launched it I love all those notes out there. They touch my heart. But what's more interesting to me is the acknowledgement that the economy actually is pretty hurtful too. And that you look at systems of oppression of people of color, of people of different, gender groups, transgender community. The economy kind of churns on those people. It's not exactly, and those people still benefit from the comfort. So it's not, but there's still these parts of the economy that could be better. And that's all I can say. It's I'm not an economist. I'm not necessarily even a systems thinker. But I just acknowledge that in making the economy holy, that we also have to then, how do we just come to terms with the fact that there are some unholy parts of our economy?
Yeah. Yes, I see that too. And I think that that's I think that those are the things that are coming to light right now. I mean, when we look at things like, in China, when all their factories are closed and they don't have the same level of smog and other pollution, or when you look in Venice, and they're
Those are
having
beautiful.
dolphins in their
Yeah.
water, and you see it, and I feel it. I feel it. Like I just feel I feel simultaneously. I can feel the anxiety in the world right now. The fear of the uncertainty, but I'm also sensing some of the relief and the relaxation. Maybe it's because we're in California, where it really is truly like the majority of people are sheltered in their homes. So one question.
I just want to add before you ask the question, like in California, we've all been practicing like yoga, meditation, holotropic breathing, plant medicine, like it's like we've all been sort of preparing for a moment to relax. Like think about how many hours of savasana per capita in the state of California versus the rest of the country. It's probably like, I know I just did it in a weird way, but it's probably really high, right? And so like this is like a savasana moment where everyone's like, oh, I know what to do. Relax, breathe.
Yeah.
Slow down. Feel my life. Be with my life,
Yeah, totally. No, I see it too. And I think that I think that the challenge for people, though, I think that that's true in some ways. And in other ways, I think people are freaking out. You know what I mean? So it's like both are true, right? I can see it in me too. I can feel my like tension, and then I can also feel my relaxation, and I'm holding both of them. And I have a lot of curiosity too. Like when I think about the future, I really do want to have a sustainable future for our families, for our children. And it is probably true that the way that the economy has just been like forging forward with no consciousness at all is really hurtful. And I think in the long run, hurtful to us individually. So it might not look it, right? It might look like, oh yeah, like maybe it is bad for the environment, but look at me with all my comforts. But it just forces us to stay asleep. And I think that's what you said like before. It's like, like it's going to hurt. It doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt for people.
Change is not always pleasant, but it can be good if we ride the change, if we can find our good life in the change,
Yeah.
It is, because it's your life. We want more life. It doesn't matter. Like, we just want it. We love our lives until we don't, because we forget that life itself is its own gift.
Yeah. And that's just a precious thing, I think, to remember. And so, when you went through this years ago, and you first had your moment of like the shock of losing your job and that sense of panic, probably, right? Did you use that word, panic? Yeah.
Panic, shame, embarrassment. It was a low moment. Lack of control was also a big one. I just felt I was like, how could this happen?
Yeah.
How could this happen?
Yeah. And then and that, how many years ago was that?
Probably a little over 5 years now.
A little over 5 years ago. Yeah. And then look at you now, really finding, like, if there was anyone who I would characterize as, resilient and like just finding the beauty in even the darkness, it would be you.
Yeah, it's been God's definitely taught me through hardship and suffering what it means to be grateful for my life. It's like, you're right. It's like, and I have this practice I do that might be helpful for people listening. I do it with clients sometimes, but I like to sort of stand up. I can do it sitting, but I like to take my hands and I kind of come right up next to myself and I say, like, this is my life as it is right now, unfiltered, without meaning. This is my life. This is what's happening. And I did this when my wife was in the hospital for 3 months. I was like, this is my life. And I would just keep trying to show up to my life and just keep trying to find a way to do what is the most enjoyable thing for me in this life, which is to be loving and kind.
Yeah.
I'm born this way. Like, I love to feel my love and I love to feel other people's love, and it's getting cleaner and cleaner for me. But it's sort of like, can I do that no matter what is happening in my life, including a pandemic? Like, it's scary out there, no doubt. Like, I've been out at the grocery store. I went on a trail the other day, and it's like, some people are really cagey, and you can start, and this may be what your next question is, I bet, but like people are being a little like scared of each other. And then there are other people where I said to someone, I thanked a couple people, I was like, thank you for practicing social distancing. And they lit up. They were just like, thank you for doing it. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, and it was just all this loving kindness from a distance and honoring how we can take care of each other through distance. It's bizarro world for sure. This is totally weird. It's so weird.
It's so weird. Yeah. But I am appreciating. So let me just recap a couple things. So one thing that you said, so you did this, like, you know, this is my life. And I'm really appreciating that as something that people can walk away with, because it feels like something that a person like who is just really kind of like, they've always thought their life is, you know, the money, the comforts, the, you know, the achievement and all of that. And this is being like a little bit dismantled for people, you know, even if you individually have your job still, you're kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months of this, in 3 months of this, in 2 more weeks of this. And, you know, we don't know. And we also have this kind of like, for this sense of like helplessness as it relates to even like, what may I be one of the ones who's unlucky and gets sick enough to end up in the hospital? And please, like, can we, you know, have the hospitals be able to take care of me? So there's a lot of fear going on with people. So I'm appreciating an exercise of just like, this is my life, and like kind of like a reality of like, can I be with me? Right? Can I just be like, this is my life, and seeing, and I'm just like, it's working me a lot. This part of, I don't think I appreciate that pixie dust, that spark in me in the way that I'm appreciating it right now, of that, like I often will say, like, I know I can make it through anything. I can survive anything. I'll be fine. But it's still coming from here. It's not really coming from this like welling up that I'm having right now of like life itself, whether I have comforts or don't have comforts, is valuable. You know, life itself.
And especially your spark. It is fun. You have just an exquisite life force, and your continued blossoming. It's like every season, every spring comes and you're like, I got a new idea that comes through you, and your commitment to bringing it forward. It's like, yeah, you are exquisite in that way. And I definitely love that about you. You're just, that's the way you embody your spark, your life, and try to do more and more of it. Right. And I love also how you are like to not be controversial, but make room for it all. You know, like someone posts something that's controversial and I see you jump in there being like, hey, like, I just want you to know, like, I might not even agree with you, but kudos for you for saying something that's, you know, going to upset someone. Like, like a protector of life force, you know, like you want people to be able to bring what they have inside out, even when it's not popular. It's just, you have a unique way. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. You're making me appreciate it. Like, I'm actually having a greater appreciation for like, wait, like if everything crumbled around me, I still have that, you know, and I don't have to do that from a defended place, because I can do it from a defended place of like, well, you know, my trauma response can jump in and be like, oh, well, I know I could go live in Florida in a trailer home and have this, and I don't need a lot. But that's different than coming from the place of, this is my life. Like, it is so precious that I want to honor that light in me and the light in you. Mm-hmm. You know, but all right. So here is my next question for you though. So in order to keep us safe and to save lives, we have to quarantine. But in order to quarantine, it means that we have to be in our homes, and we do have to be social distancing. And so, you know, you joke about the trails, but at least we have the trails, right? At least I can go out and be 6 feet away from somebody, and we can say, hey, thanks for social distancing, and laugh about it and still have some connection. But there are a lot of people who are absolutely isolated.
Talk about being in a Brooklyn apartment building.
Yeah.
Unreal. Like, I can't. So I have a word that I started using when Megan was in the hospital, and I've never seen it like at such scale, like we're seeing it right now. And to your point that there are people who live in little apartments or live in little in the sort of the inner city where it's very urban and there's no space. I just refer to it as like the unimaginable. of
Mm.
what humans go through. And to me,
Mm.
I mean, like, you know, after watching Megan almost die and the girls watching her get taken up, and I'm like, that was all unimaginable. And so now my prism is like, when someone tells me about hardship, I soften and I go, wow, that's unimaginable. But then I also think of what's unimaginable for them on the other side. And so I just see it all as sacred. And so that's why I do, to some extent, see this pandemic as a sacred moment for all of humanity, where we are all being put through some like, and it's disproportionate, right? To the small business owner whose whole income and business is crashing right now. It's disproportionate to the person who's still on a $250,000 salary that's just working from home and is kind of not too worried today. They can see some projection, but so it's not spread out evenly, but so is it not spread evenly on planet Earth. Like, not everybody has watched their wife almost die in front of them. And it's like, and I don't say that to woe is me, but I say it as it is my way of getting away from that story, to go, that was my sacred life and my sacred unimaginable. And when my brother's wife died, 12 years ago, unimaginable, and that was sacred. So I don't know. I have a bias now, which is just probably to apply that it's sacred, because it is the alchemy of how people show up. Go find me any great leader in this world that we all love, that's famous or something, that didn't have unimaginable stuff happen to them. It is the alchemy of how we, to use a nature metaphor, like seeds start in darkness, under the ground, completely dark.
Yeah.
Somehow, in the darkness, they crack. They literally crack. And for me, cracking looked like crying a million tears. I mean, literally breaking my heart in half. And somehow I broke, and I was able to blossom a little bit in a way that I never would have if Megan didn't, go through that, and I didn't go through it. And so I offer that to the person stuck in their home right now, that if they can access, their own life force and recognize that they're going through something. This is my life. Yeah, fuck, this is my life. It fucking kind of sucks right now. Excuse my language. It really does. When you're going through this stuff, I'm not sugarcoating it. Like, watching Megan on a ventilator for 2.5 months was not pleasant. To watch her be totally immobile in a hospital bed and watch nurses have to take care of every function for her. To see my daughters every day and tell them that mommy, like, they can't see her yet because she was in an ICU unit. It's not appropriate for kids. Like, that was all very real. And so I share all this so people get that I'm not saying this from a place of, just like not being kind but it's just like, this is my life. This is your life right now with whatever you're going through. And if we can show up to it and stop, and to your point, that I know you love this stuff, is like, a lot of the stuff we're doing when we're not just in our life is we're telling stories about what our life should be like, what it could have been like, or what it's supposed to be like. My business is supposed to be thriving, but that's all story when you get to the place of, this is my life.
Yeah.
Observable reality. What's my next? And this is some stuff I learned in program. What's the next right thing? And it might be the next right thing, if you're losing your business and you have a little money in the bank, is to go buy some ice cream for you and your kids, and to show them that you still have some light in you, and that mommy and daddy isn't totally, drinking in a bottle or escaping their life when there's sweet ones around. I mean, it's just like, that's what got me through. I just look at my little kids and be like, God, my life, even in this shitty moment, they're still like, my daughters are the best thing ever to me. It's like, they were still there. There was still love.
Yeah.
And there was also, the last thing I would just say is to ask for help, which I know you've been a champion of for many years now. It's like, yeah, if you're going through something really hard, if you haven't cried your eyes out, if you haven't called a friend for help, I encourage you to do that ASAP. Like, it's the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I always say, never worry alone. Just never do any of that stuff alone. Like, a second that you drop into worry, like, pick up the phone or, share somebody, because as you said, like, worry is usually some type of a story, like some, future catastrophizing. And so the more that we can get someone else to give us a reality check, or even just a listening ear. So yeah, that's really important, because I do think that there are a lot of people who will suffer from social isolation. Maybe they already tended toward isolation and didn't even appreciate how much just going to the store gave them some sense of connection. And so, we might have to get really creative in the ways that we connect. Right. And, but what I want to just repeat back that I heard you say that was really helpful was, I think, one piece of this is just to seize the moment a little bit, like to allow yourself to be cracked open. And if we do go into the story, or if we go into blame, and we go into sort of like this, if this would be better, then everything would, if the pandemic would be over, then we'll be better. We can get back to our lives. Talk about a missed opportunity. I mean, there are people talking about like, oh, make sure you like do a hobby or do a thing that you've been wanting to do. I mean, really what we're saying is slow it down, feel that, allow yourself to be worked, and see if you can crack open. And then we don't know, when you crack open, that might be the moment that sprouts your genius. It sprouts for the first time ever, the authentic you that really has been like, that life has been begging to show up, but none of us tend to take advantage of that until we end up in that breaking point, right? That's usually like, we need a breaking point to get us to be like, what? This is life? Like,
and you can't even see it in it. Like, I just also want to give a shout out to like all the people, like when Megan was like the darkest time, where really doctors, nurses were like, didn't think she was going to make it, And
I remember
people
that.
People were like, they started saying all the things that I would say to them as a coach, Like, I had clients even be like, keep your head up, stay positive. And I'd be like, just shut the, like, so I just want to give a shout out to that part, like, too, that if you're really going through it right now, but it is still just the light. I still heard it from people. And I was in such sadness and fear and turmoil, but it was still helpful. And I laugh now looking back that there were people who were telling me to do what I would tell them. And so it's okay, even if you don't want to let all this in, even if you let it in, even if you're just still listening, you've already done a huge thing if you're somebody really going through it. But for anybody who's supporting people really going through it, it's just important to know that, like, it's hard to shine on people who are really in the dark, but I still think it's important to do so and to not let them push us away so far that we stop calling or we stop to, because people, it's hard. You know it, right? People who go into the darkness, they don't really want to hear your airy fairy light, but they do sort of. It's how they find it's how they find the light from the dark. And I think when we start to just assume that someone's in the darkness and they don't want to hear it, I think we forget about them sometimes. I have family members like that where I'm still just like, hey, thinking of you, sending love. It's like that's the light. It's just like, for people like you and I, Deb, who are light carriers for people, it's like, and all the people watching this are light carriers. It's like, right now it is so important to be the light, to cultivate our inner light and share it somehow. And that's why it's so beautiful. You wanted, all of a sudden you're like, pandemic, great time to launch my idea. It's like, of course, because you're a light carrier. You've always been and always will. And people have their opinions of certain things you say or don't say, but it's like, you have a bright light and you're shining it. And it's the important work now in a dark time.
Yeah. Well, and likewise, and that's what I think is the most important thing, that like this type of video or audio is for people to be able to hear this, but also to see that there's a way through it, and that you showed that, I mean, of course it's hard when you're in the middle of it, but I think that it's more just an invitation to people, just to say, like, there's an invitation to do something a little bit different in this time. And you can take it or not, and it might not be this time. You might hear this recording right now, and then, it's 5 years later that you're like, I remember, and it was the seed that got planted.
So true. And I could just hear this whisper inside of me right now. It's just like whispering louder and louder. It's just like, and life persists.
Life persists.
And life persists. It's like whatever comes our way. And we're talking thousands of years. You know how much crazy shit human beings have seen?
Yeah.
Way crazier than this pandemic, probably. Way crazier than the potential collapse of an economy that probably isn't going to collapse the way we think. It could go into a depression. But it's pretty strong. I mean, all of a sudden the government's got checks for all of us. Where was that money hanging out? It's like, we've been suffering for a while, folks. It's like, okay, so it can't be that bad. The government's whipping out $3,000 checks for everybody. I heard some of it's automated. Like, I don't even have to fill anything out. They're just going to start sending checks out if you made under 150 in 2018.
Right. A family. Is that right? A family? Or no, anybody gets something.
Don't listen to me for the guidance. But my point is, all of a sudden there's this magic money they could just start to distribute. It's like, okay, so life will persist.
Yeah.
It is the thing that does persist until life itself gets snuffed out on this planet. That would be the only, like we're talking the dinosaurs, life gets snuffed out or extinction, but life is powerful. Do not underestimate the power of life. That's what I'm hearing. It's like, it's incredible what humans have gone through. I mean, think about all the families in Africa who had to find a way through drought and starvation. I mean, with none of the comforts we had, life persisted, and people who overcame, years and years of slavery, all the people in this country who are the descendants of the people who were slaves, somehow life persisted. And I just pray it keeps getting better for all of those people whose ancestors struggled so hard so that they could have life. That's all that's happening. It's like the struggle so that the next generation can have life.
Yeah. So actually, I want to say something about that, because it's circling back to the beginning of the conversation about the economy and life. But I just wanted to say this because it's been kind of like, you heard a whisper, mine's just been like a little bit of like a persistent, like, just to say this, is that, the guy, anyone who said that about the grandparents, I still want to also, because I am so much like the person who, I really do try to see why they're a person's intention. And I feel a little bit bad. The guy gets like so beat up when actually I really felt that he was coming from that place that you're talking about, which is the one which is like, I want a better life for my children and my grandchildren. And if I can sacrifice me for them, I'll do it any day. And that's what I think is actually built into parents. I think that if you were in a situation right now where you could give up your life for your kids to have their life, I actually believe, I won't speak for you, I'll speak for me. If that were my choice, if I were at that choice point right now, it would be so easy for me to do that. And I felt like that's where he, honestly, maybe I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
I'm with you. Like, I feel the same way about Donald Trump. I don't even have any ill will. I'm grateful for him for starting the conversation that allowed for all this. Like, without him saying that, I'm not saying what I'm saying today. So bless him in his life. I think, it also felt better to me when you made it about your life, not my life.
Yeah.
And so I think also that, especially when, I don't know, I just have a bias, like, especially when older white men start talking about other people, I get a little bit jumpy. But if he would have just said, I give my life, and then I saw some other people say that, and I went, okay, it's reasonable. You could say whatever you want about your life versus sweeping generalizations about all grandparents. But I hear what you're saying. I get it. I totally get where they're coming from. I just think the question is, how good is the system to hold it above all human life? Like, if the system could change through this, wouldn't that be worth it?
Yeah. And
to hold some life together. So it's just like, it is interesting, like the nature of it. But I appreciate you. I swear, every time I see you on Facebook, get someone's back or say the thing that shouldn't be said, I just am like, good for you for holding the container for room for all of it. And nobody, I'm a big believer when I studied about Gandhi and nonviolent resistance, like, part of nonviolent resistance is the acknowledgement that we don't know if we're right or not.
Right.
We don't know 100%. We're human beings on a planet. What's good? What's bad? Like, how do I know that? Like, he would say, like, how do I know God doesn't want Britain to take over all of India? I don't know for certain, so I'm not going to kill the British soldier.
I know.
And that's like a little bit of room for the I don't know. Just to me, as a young kid, when I learned about that, I was like, oh, that's for me. And it sounds like it's for you too, right? It's like anybody who goes so 100%, it's almost like, well, how do you don't know for certain.
Exactly.
You don't know for certain, like that, it's like, and so that's the softness, right? And it allows us to not have to fight people on their beliefs. And, I try not to. I just keep coming back to, like, this is my life.
Yeah.
This is what's moving me. But I love that about you. It makes me feel safe with you,
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks. And but I love it about you too. And that's part of why we're able to have this type of a conversation. And I'm able to, we're both able to feel safe. We have like the psychological safety to be able to bring whatever, because I know that I don't know for sure. I can have like a guess, and I feel courageous enough to be able to say it to you, and safe enough to be able to say it to you. But at the end of the day, like, I don't really know. And you've expanded my mind in this conversation in ways that I could have never expected.
Yeah. And I really love what you said about the guy, and that he's really speaking. It's helpful for me to hear it that way. Like, he's speaking the prayer of his grandparents, which is like the good life, the good American life, the comforts, never having to worry about food on the table, never having to worry about water or electricity. And like, that's worth everything to that generation, that came out of the Depression. And I think that's really powerful. And I bet if he would have said it that way, he would have gotten a lot more love than, and probably, and I also think that man in particular has a history as a and nothing against the Tea Party, but they have a history of saying the thing that is the most sensational as a tool to shake things up. And so I think that's okay, you know, and I just, so it came out of that container that he works from.
Oh, for sure. Right.
He didn't get up there and go, my grandparents had a prayer and I just want to be part of it. And if I had to say, we'd all be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I hadn't thought of it that way. You're so right. People would have softened immediately and be like, wow, that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and keep in mind that the media does like to take people's words and twist them into a much more negative perspective. And if we go right to the source, often, like I listened to him and I did hear it slightly differently than a lot of other people did. So, you know, but I am constantly in check of my bias and my orientation. So I think a great place that I'd love to end with is I'd love to know from you, when you think about your children, what are you saying to them? Not just about the coronavirus, but like just in life right now. Like, what are you saying to them about these things? Relationships, connection to themselves. How are you helping them?
I mean, we softened so much on the digital, like Aura's just turned 8. She has like Instagram Messenger for kids now. She would never have gotten that 3 months ago, but now we're like, it's her only way to chat and feel like she has her own access to her friends. And so we're definitely loosened up on some technology interaction, just being softer. I mean, like I said, I know I just went through crisis with my family. So I just have a way of ton of loving kindness, try to be as patient as I can, be as flexible as I can be, try to not be short with them really at all. I make sure we go outside every day, bike rides, there's walks, just get out. But I think, for me, I just turn up the loving kindness and I just hold them tighter and I love them more. And I just, I make room for that so that they know how sweet they are and how much I love them. And I just turn that way up. Authentic. I'm not like saying things that I wouldn't normally say, but that's where my attention goes. And I explain things if they hear about, like my sister-in-law said she, like maybe somebody in the family may have it and they're like, oh, it's, the fear busted up. So then I give them information and we talk about it, but then a lot of singing songs, a lot of dancing, a lot of play, a lot of checkers. I'm a little bored of checkers, I'll be honest.
A little bored of checkers. You need to level that one up.
I keep coming back to this place of, in crisis, one of the best things we can offer ourselves and each other is loving kindness, because everybody is scared right now. Everybody is anxious. Everybody is. So we just acknowledge that it's like it's not a contest of who's more anxious right now. And for those who are in the deep end of the collapse or the suffering of their businesses, they're getting an extra sacred dose from my perspective of the hardship of this. And so I send them my love, and I'm just grateful we're all home. I'm grateful Megan's home. It's her birthday on Sunday. So we'll have a sweet little cozy shelter-in-place birthday party,
Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's finish with you telling us, I want to know about your new project. I want to know how people can find you and connect with you and can they work with you? Are you available to be worked with right now? And
sure.
And how's that work?
Yeah, so I'm working on a new business that I think if you heard the Michael Mead thing, it's called Launch Medicine. And it really is what we do best, Deb. I mean, talking to you, I hope we can do a separate call and I could share more about Launch Medicine with you. And because you are Launch Medicine, you are a person who does it for yourself and other people to help people blossom and to bring the ideas forward. And I've learned, as you have over years of entrepreneurship, that it's really hard to do it alone. And it's really I think the myth that has been sold by Squarespace and Wix and all the B schools and the coaching schools and all the things. It's like, you could do it yourself, be a solo entrepreneur. And I think it made people really lonely. And I think there is a certain soulful entrepreneur who really would like to have a launch partner, who would like somebody who could take them through a process of getting really clear of what's their intention for their business. I often call it the prayer or intention. And then really be clear about what their offerings are, about how you take that clear vision for what they want to do into something that's marketable and something they can offer the world and make money for. And then the part about Launch Medicine I'm so excited about, and I think you're going to love too, is that we don't just then say, okay, go find your own creative help. We have all the creative help that they need to get their website going. And if they want to do it themselves, we have a process to help them do Squarespace and give them creative reviews and keep leveling up their site. And if they don't want to do it, we have designers and we have people who can help them, and doing it all at really as low of a cost as I can get it. That's sort of and everything's transparent. We tell everybody how much things cost. It's like, I'm just trying to be a blossoming agent, but I just want to like be part of the great blossoming of each human being, right? It's like, some people tend to gardens. I think I tend to people, and I'm what I love. And so Launch Medicine for Entrepreneurs is out there, and we're starting to do work. The website should be out in the next couple of weeks. And then we're starting a Launch Medicine for organizations who want to bring healing to the workplace and still be successful, and not to make business, like, I guess my last part about Launch Medicine, I would say, is like, businesses, especially nowadays, businesses sort of can have this view of being toxic or hurtful. And I believe that business can have a healing element to it if we design it into it. And so moving away from wellness being sort of a side part of a business to the heart of how we take care of human beings and do good work together. So that is Launch Medicine. I can send you my email address, Aaron at Coach Schiller. You could link to it for now until the Launch Medicine stuff is up. I would love to talk to you. I'll be honest, during the pandemic, I've had some of the most inspirational conversations with people who have big ideas that are cracking open and just need some help to get it down the line, and want to be taken through a process that feels really good and healing. And people who work with me cry a lot of tears. It's hard, entrepreneurship. You know it. Even doing this show has put you through the friggin' ringer, right? How many feelings did you have to this one show? It's so many. And to have to, fortunately you have a ton of support in your life, and I'm sure you had your moments with people, but nobody should have to do that alone,
Yeah. I agree with you. I could not agree anymore. And I also want to just shout out that I think anyone working with you would be so blessed, because one of the things I notice about running or trying to launch a business, which you said before about, it's like everybody wants to do it in like this quick fix way. Like, oh, you know what? Just like we're going to do it in a 2-month process that I bring you through, and it's going to look like this, and we're going to do these steps, and on Friday you're going to get this done, and it's just not the way it works. Right. It is such a journey, right? And the most important work isn't really, I mean, I don't want to minimize it, but it's not really the website. It's not really the bio and all that stuff. It's everything you did to get there. And that's where you're a genius, because you not only are you so good at you're just a smart, like a wise businessman with a lot of insight, but you go at a person's pace. You meet them where they are. You know that it's like a cultivation. It's not a thing to do on your to-do list. This is like it's literally like, how do I cultivate bringing out your genius? Mm-hmm. And that isn't something that everybody is spending the time to do or able to do, but every person who is on this journey needs it. So I'm super appreciative that you're doing it. It's awesome. I've always had, every time that I've ever, worked with you and talked with you about this type of thing, I'm always broken open just a little bit more. And I bring my authentic self just a little bit more to everything I do.
Thank you so much for saying all those kind words. And I love the way you talked about cultivate. It is what it is. It's like tending a garden. It doesn't all blossom right away. You have to really tend it and cultivate, and then you have a harvest. It's like it is the orientation to medicine as that, the plant and animal world. So I really love you, Deb. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
I love you too. This is so great.
I'll fill out the form that you sent me. You sent me another form I got to fill out, and I was so resistant because I've just been busy and doing stuff. But I in my heart, I was like, this is going to be really helpful to talk with you today. And I really do feel like it has been for myself and for people listening. Like, kudos on you to launch this right now in this moment in our world.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really intended. It was actually supposed to be launched anyway. It just happens to be. And I'm like, I'm just going with it.
Sure. No, I believe that.
I did. I really did. But I want to just leave one last thing. I just want to, a quote you made that you said that I just want to leave people with, which is you talked about this idea, and that I actually think is self-care. And, but you used this quote, and you said, tending to the river inside of us. And I just want to encourage people that in this journey, as we navigate these times, that each of us tends to the river inside of us, and that we find that spark, and that we really we play with it, and we play in that river, and that we don't need to, that there's nothing that we need to do other than keep connecting back to ourselves and remembering this is our life. This is our life. And thank you, Aaron, for reminding us to connect to our life and the preciousness of life.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.